Good evening,
This
everyone.
conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. I am pleased to see everyone here, and I am going to apologize right at the beginning here for the possibility of having some difficulty with the recording tonight. We are having lots of heavy weather down here in Florida. So I am going to take my video off. So those of you who are live are going to stop seeing me now, because that's going to help us a little bit on my end to be able to make a clearer presentation to you folks. So I am definitely here, but please forgive me for not having my picture up there for you. Okay, we're getting started, and this is the 29th path that we're working on this evening, the 29th path. And of course, we're going to do some review, as we always do, on path 30. And we're also going to take a look at where we're going on path 28. So let's move forward right off. And what I'm seeing here, I'm going to go back over our path working checklist with you folks. Just again, as a reminder, this is always a good thing for you to have at your fingertips whenever you're at home, getting ready to do your path working, getting ready to listen to your recording, because this will help to keep you on track. So if you haven't printed out your copy yet, please do that and make sure that you have that well at hand. General instructions. Remember, this isn't something you have to always do. You can just do the path by itself, or you can read it out of the book. You can listen to the audio. But as you add more and more things to your path working experience, you wear the color, you hold the stone, you wear the scent. As you add more and more of these things onto it, you're connecting yourself more deeply to the path, and so the experience becomes richer. Like anything else, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. So I recommend print always and color the path mandala before you listen to the path. It's also my choice, and we've gone over this before, but it's my choice to listen to the path first and then to go back either immediately or perhaps the next day and reread it from the book to make sure that I've actually caught everything that was on the path. Because it is amazing, very often as we're going through the path itself stimulates our subconscious mind to go off on our own little journey. And it is this thing, this quality, that makes the path working specific and individual to every single one of us. So the path working is very, very specific and individual for each person. And that's the thing that really does it and makes it so special. So what you're going to do is look at that mandala, color the mandala before you do the path, and listen to the path first, and then redo the reading of the path after you've listened to it. I also recommend that you do anything that's going to clear your mind, your body, and your emotions before you do the path working. It's like anything else that you do. If you come to it with clarity and with focus, with your mind clear, with total attention, you are going to get far more out of it, both consciously and subconsciously, than if you've got 20,000 things that you have to take care of, in which case you're probably going to end up sleeping through the path because your subconscious mind will put you to sleep so that your mind can actually focus on the path instead of on those 20,000 other things you've got on your mind. So some of you whose minds are drifting as you go through the paths, we are with these paths here going through the lower astral plane, and it is very difficult to pay focused attention to the paths on this plane of existence unless you really take some time to clear yourself first. And just for your information, on my YouTube channel, I do have a lot of ways of clearing yourself under my psychic protection tips. Also, all through my psychic development program, with each different level of the program, there are more clearing techniques and clearing tips. And here are some that I use myself. I will sometimes burn a clearing incense like sage or pine before I do the path, or I'll take a salt bath or swim in the ocean, or I'll sometimes take a pomade, take some sea salt and mix it into a pomade of bath salts, and then take a shower and use that salt pomade to wash my skin off as I'm visualizing white light coming down through the shower, through my body, and washing all my cares and concerns away. All these are some great clearing methods. Those of you who have the slim Sperling ring, you know that can actually, when you pass it over your body, it can cut ties and cords that you may have to other people and situations that you're carrying with you. You can also use your breath to clear yourself. Just breathe in, and as you breathe out, feel that wind carrying all of the debris of the day down away from you into the ground. So many clearing techniques available, and you should use all the ones that you've experienced that work for yourself. You can also place the path's corresponding tarot major arcana card or an index card with the name of that corresponding card under your pillow. And that's also going to have the option of getting you focused into the path. I also want you to remember to put the corresponding crystal for the path under your pillow, or if that's too rocky, put it on the night table next to your bed. Also, during the week while you're on the path, you might want to actually carry that Tarot Major Arcanum card and the stone with you. And again, that'll help to keep you more consciously aware that you and the path are interacting with one another as you're moving through life. You know, most people these days are aware of the law of attraction, which basically says that we are creating our world with our minds and our emotional reactions to the things that happen for us. So when you put your mind solidly on not only the path, but all of the corresponding aspects of the path, it begins to connect you in, where through synchronicity, you are experiencing and learning those lessons and surmounting those lessons that the path teaches us much more completely. So to set the stage, you need about 45 minutes of undisturbed time. You are going to be anointing your third eye with the oil for the path, and we talked about this in past classes. Yes, you can also use either the oil associated with the Sephiroth that the path starts out in, or the oil from the Sephiroth that the path ends up in. So you've got, sometimes 6 or 7 different oils you can choose from. If you don't have an opportunity to get those oils, then my suggestion is you use something like lavender, which is a great oil, a great scent for relaxation, and use the same scent through all of the paths. Or you might use something like pine, which is very protective, and use that as your path oil for all of the paths. So you can do that as well. You can also, while you're doing the path, hold the stone, even hold or put the tarot card on the cushion next to you where you're sitting or lying when you do the path. So you're bringing these qualities. Wear the color of the path when you do it. Wear that color frequently throughout the week. Hold your mandala in front of your eyes and gaze at it and listen to the path until the path voice actually says, now close your eyes and lay your mandala aside. And that's exactly what you should do. Now, when you are on the path, allow your mind to relax, close your eyes, and just allow yourself to flow with wherever the path takes you. If your mind should wander onto a daydream, something that's not related to the path, that's okay. That's your path. It was included on this path because it has to do with something that's being stimulated by the path right now in your life. And as I said earlier, that's what makes the path working unique, the unique experience for each one of us. And immediately when you come out of your path, remember to record your immediate reactions. How did you feel physically? How did you feel emotionally? what's going on in your mind. Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel tense? And then go back and think about how you felt during the parts of the path that you remember. In fact, you might want to write down the part of the path that had the most intense effect on you. And finally, during the week, don't forget to keep track of your emotions, your physical responses, and also, and very importantly, your dreams. Because all of those are going to give you insight as to how the path is affecting you. So each time I go over this checklist, if you re-listen, I'm giving you different pointers. Same checklist, but we're going a little deeper each time so that you're going to learn to get a little more and a little more and a little more out of each one of the paths. Now also, you should have printed out this page. This is the page I photocopied right out of the book that lists all of the paths with the corresponding color, the corresponding stone, and the corresponding tarot major arcanum. If you want to also, on the page you printed out, write the corresponding oil or scent or herb, that would be fine too. Now, each one of you, before you lie down or sit down to listen to the path, always remember to protect. Likewise, when you sit down to listen to these recordings or this class, remember to protect yourself. Because the work that we're doing can be very opening, and that's not always the healthiest way to go through life, in that open way, because then you could be picking up the thoughts and the feelings of other people, even beings on the other planes, and not even realizing you're doing it. So if you want to protect the integrity of your own persona, you'll protect yourself before you do your path working, and also before taking these classes each time. And when you're done, if you feel that you need to release that protection, that's fine. Again, on YouTube, I have many psychic protection tips, and a lot of those psychic protections can be used for your protection in the class and with the path working itself. Now, you can also go to my website, and you can employ the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram or the energy balloon, and there are many other protective techniques that you can learn from lots of wonderful books. My favorite psychic protection book is actually called that name. It's called The Art of Psychic Protection, and it's written by Judy Hall. That's really my favorite because it's written for the layperson. It's very easy, and she's got lots of good protections in there that you might want to use. And of course, those of you who have taken my psychic development classes, you're going to find all kinds of protection techniques all through those classes, and you can use all of them for protection when you're doing the path working. Just about everything in there is going to be helpful. Okay, so we're going a little bit deeper with each one of those things each time we meet. So let's talk about path 30. This is the path, not the path we're on now. We're on 29 right now as we're speaking. This is the path that we were on last week. And remember, when we got to, in this case, Sunday, we swapped from path 30 to path 29. We began to work on the path we're on right now, which is 29. So I'm going to ask you to look back in your mind and in your path journal, okay? Look back in that path journal to path 30. And of course, path 30, we were on the right side of the tree, if you think of it as your body, the left side of the tree if you are looking at it. And if you remember, I told you that path 30 was a very ungrounded path, very mentally and emotionally stimulating, because it begins in Yesod, which is the lower astral plane, and it ends in Had, one of the Sephirot, which deals with the upper astral plane. So 30 is a really fascinating, fun path, but very, very ungrounded. Now that we've got almost a week under our belts away from it, we can look back at our experiences on the 30th path. And please do open your journal so that you can be right with me in this as I go through it. The areas that the 30th path helped us work on. Okay, these are the areas. First, it is an alchemical path. By that, I mean that it is the transformation of one base element into another. And in this case, the transformation is your physical body moving into a new form that can accommodate a higher and more refined energy. So one of the things that you should be looking for in your journal when you look back over that week is, did you have more energy or less energy? More energy says, okay, I was bringing in higher energy. Less energy, feeling blocked, could mean just that you were blocking the flow of that energy. And so remember also, all of us are going to feel more comfortable on one side of the tree or the other. And you folks are just learning about that right now. So if you're one of those people who are less comfortable on this side of the tree where the 30th path is, you might find that your energy level was dragging, that your energy level was low throughout the week that we were on the 30th path. On the other hand, if you were unblocked and if you were really flowing with the path, and if this side of the tree is comfortable for you, you may have found yourself being the Energizer Bunny all week and getting more done and having more of an experience than you've ever had before. Okay? So all of that is absolutely wonderful. And I also want to share with you that when we move to the next section, shape-shifting, which is a variation on level 1, many of you on the 30th path would have begun to experience some literal changes, not just in your energy level, but even in your body. You might have been standing taller, which will allow the energy to flow through you better. You might have been finding that all of a sudden you wanted to take more exercise classes. That affects the physical body, the frame, the musculature. You may have found that you were in situations that in the past you might have avoided, and finding yourself there now, all of a sudden you didn't even get noticed. It was like you just sort of escaped. Let me give you an example. And I'm making a joke out of this, but you might have gone to a family gathering that normally would have made you feel terribly uncomfortable because you just don't feel like you're connecting to those people that are your family members. And you go to that gathering after having done the 30th path, and everybody accepts you, and it flows, and you don't really feel any different, and they don't make you feel uncomfortable, and you scratch your head afterwards and you say, wow, how did that happen? And why did that happen? Because through this whole concept of alchemy and shape-shifting, you're subtly shifting your energy as you move through different groups, different people, different situations. So things that were difficult before the 30th path begin to become easier. And for some of you, you may have shape-shifted the other direction, where you recognized your own difference and accepted it and said, nope, I'm not going to that family gathering. I do not need that type of association in my life right now. So look through your journal for the 30th path and see if some of those types of situations came to you, okay? Also, that 30th path is all about learning to navigate the astral plane. My friends, this is so incredibly important. Personally, I believe this is one of the big reasons why I was led to develop these paths and to set up a program for you to walk them and for me to guide you through them. Because learning to navigate the astral plane at this time in mankind's development is so absolutely incredibly important. You see, the astral plane translates to those of us here on the physical as drama. If you know some people in your life who live to talk about other people and live to worry and create new things to worry about and create new things to be fearful about and have to tell everybody all about it for hours and days and weeks and years, you are looking at people who are living their lives mentally and emotionally trapped on the astral plane. Because that astral plane, as you're beginning to learn, is all about those constructs that we have created with our mind and our emotions. So in following these paths, especially the 30th and the 29th and the 28th that we're going to be doing next week, you're learning to navigate the astral. So you're learning to recognize when what someone's talking about is purely drama and isn't real. And you're learning to recognize when what they're talking about is really real. It's kind of like learning to tell fake news from real news. And you're learning to do this as we move through these planes. You're learning to recognize through your own intuition that this issue is real, must be handled. This issue is not real. This issue may be real, but it's not something I want to continue with. Therefore, I'll pull my energy from it. This other issue that maybe doesn't even exist yet, but I want to exist because it's where I want my future to go, I'm going to focus my energy on and I will create. So these paths, these 3 or 4 paths that we're on right now, are teaching us to navigate the astral plane. And on path 30, we are at the very beginning of this, where we're really learning how to recognize the activity of the astral plane. And the path itself did give us an internal roadmap because it gave us that mansion, remember? And we went from one room to another, to another, to another. And finally we launched into the cosmos and we flew through space and we identified planets. And we eventually landed on that planet and found our way up the mountain. The wizard activated our upper chakras, especially our third eye, and we watched ourselves as chemicals were thrown into the volcano, along, remember, with the dragon, our dragon, and what emerged was the phoenix, the transformed self. So you see, you're transforming in path 30. You're transforming because you're learning to recognize those components of you that exist on the astral plane as parts of you that can be integrated and utilized to affect your world in a very positive way. So think about, when you look back at your journal for path 30, think about all of the things that happened during the week. Let the journals stimulate your memory. Think about those things that happened during the week that you either recognized as not important and walked away from, or that you chose to put energy into and build to something larger. Think about how you learned already to utilize this energy. Think about how you learned to navigate through what might have been a particularly difficult circumstance emotionally with maybe a romantic partner or a family member or someone at work. Now, we also, on path 30, learned more about astral traveling. So those of you who are remembering your dreams may have found yourself waking up in the dream, out of the body, on the astral. And again, look through your journal and see if you're one of those people that had the stimulus of astral traveling. We also opened both our sacral and solar plexus center, which stimulated the third eye center. That was with the help of our alchemist. So many of you would have had unusual feelings, maybe just a tingling or a feeling of pressure on the sacral area. That's 2 inches below the belly button, the solar plexus center at the base of your sternum, or the brow center, which is right between your brows. That's your third eye center. And because of the stimulation of those centers, your intuition would have been working full speed all week long. So again, consult your journal and see what pertains. The 30th path helped you to disengage from the material mind. And some of you may not quite understand what that means, but it's about your focus changing from being, wow, I want that thing, I have to struggle to get that thing, I have to make the money to get that thing, to turning your attention inward, saying, there's something that's there in the outer world that will make my life easier. So I'm going to focus on it being a part of my life on the inner world. And by doing that, I can adjust the stuff of this astral plane to where that physical thing will be attracted to me. So there's a disengaging from the material mind, the externalization of mind, to the internalization of mind, recognizing that the outer world is a reflection of the inner world. And that's very important as we move through the paths. The more you get to understand that and feel it, the more effectively you're going to become in charge of and in control of every aspect of your life. Gaining confidence in knowing what's necessary to do and being able to follow your inner voice to do it. So that actually could almost be two things. Gaining the confidence, the belief in yourself. I know what I know, is what an old girlfriend used to say to me. You know, somebody else might say blah, but I know what I know. And so she would always follow what she knew. So get to that point. Be confident in knowing what you know. And once you know what you know, it's only a very tiny step forward to recognize what's necessary for you to do and be in order to be able to follow that inner voice and pull it all together and be the person you want to be. Again, look at your journal and see what came up during the week where maybe your values were challenged. Maybe you had to take a look at how things were coming together and say, am I on the right path, or is this the right time to change paths? Listening to that inner voice is the most important thing you'll ever do. Also, the 30th path helps you to learn how to get peace of mind. And it also shows you how to achieve it. Okay, so you're understanding in yourself what you personally require to have peace of mind. And knowing what you require, you now have the awareness of what you need to do to be able to achieve that. So again, look back at your journal. Does your peace of mind come from your relationship? Does it come from your family? Does peace of mind for you come from having that time for yourself each day where you can be creative and sit with yourself? What is it that brings you peace of mind? Be aware of it. And when you're aware of it, it's very easy to look at the steps necessary to get more of it. It also helps you to resolve this 30th path, seeming opposites. Again, look back at your journal. I've often found that in the process of resolving the opposites, what do we find? That they were never really opposite to begin with. In taking a polarized stance, you create the opposite. So in resolving opposites, you bring those opposing pieces together. Where in your life last week was that happening? Where in your life did you see the action of oppositions being created? Also, it helps us to be able to access the Akashic records. Those of you who want to develop that particular psychic skill should spend more time with this path and continue to go back and re-listen to it over and over again, because it's going to give you the ability to travel that part of the astral plane that helps you to open what we call the book of the Akashic records. So you can read the past, the present, the future from those records. There's a saying that everything that's here was created with the first breath of God at the beginning, at the Big Bang. It's all here. It's just a matter of knowing where to look. This is the path that will help you, or one of them, to know where to look. So in the last week, what situations occurred for you where you were able to almost immediately put your finger on cause or effect, or immediately recognize the inevitable outcome of a current situation? And that leads into prophetic insight, another psychic skill that this 30th path develops. Prophetic insight being the ability to see the future. And it's a little bit different than accessing the Akashic, because those with prophetic insight don't really even have to open the book. They will develop the ability to look at seemingly disparate pieces of a puzzle and pull an inevitable and accurate conclusion from those pieces of that puzzle. So those are the people that, we see them on that game show Jeopardy, and there are 5 letters up there on the board, and somehow that person makes a whole sentence out of it and it's accurate. There's your prophetic insight. So similar but not quite the same as the Akashic records. It also helps you to gain mental fluidity and an ease of detachment. So those of you who have a scientific mind are going to be very comfortable on this path, on path 30, and you're going to be feeling very fulfilled on path 30, because it gives that ability of the mind to flow in and around all kinds of concepts and philosophies and technical knowledge, and do it with an emotional detachment. It also aids the study of astrology and any technical science. So again, I'm going to draw your attention that if you're studying numerology or astrology, this is a good path to re-listen to stimulate that part of your mind that will be needed to learn those things. Likewise, if you're in college and you're studying math or accounting or biology or chemistry or space technology, this path is going to help you to develop the mental tools to be able to quickly and easily learn those subjects. So these are the things you can go back and re-listen to this path, or put that tarot card back under your pillow, or hold that stone when you're going to take the test, and it's going to help you. It helps with mental ecstasy and exhilaration. These are the people that are going to get excited, very excited, over solving a problem, over having a new technical thing to explore. Can't you just feel it? It's also great for development of the magical will. I know I explained that to you in depth the last time we spoke, but remember, the magical will is what occurs in your will when you merge your will with the will of the divine. And I'm not seeing here what you think the divine will is. The magical will gets accessed when you let go of control, when you learn to go with the flow, when you learn to merge with that higher power and apply your dynamic will to where the universe wants to go. Wow, what kind of power is that? Then we call that the magical will. It helps you with diligence in acquiring a skill. So anytime you're really wanting to learn something new, this is the path to redo. It helps you to learn to use your healing ability. So when you look back over your journal, did you have moments during the week where you were able to access that healing part of yourself? Now that particular thing is adding to this week, the 29th. So we're building on that. but it would have begun under the 30th path. It helps you to be better with visualization as it expands and opens your third eye. It helps you to develop your artistic, get this, inspiration. Not just the artistic capability, but the artistic inspiration. It also helps you to find, understand, and accept your soulmate. And again, I want to point out that this path shows two very important ways of accessing the higher mind in Han. One way, by merging with another individual, sharing your life with that person without controlling them. That whole concept, two wholes, can create a union that's greater than the sum of the parts. That's what a soulmate is. And when those two individuals completely give selflessly to one another and completely support one another as individuals at the same time, they are capable of achieving and creating massive change in our world. Likewise, the person who follows the steps of the 30th path and does the work with their mind and does the work to understand the universe and spends their life in study and their world in experimenting and exploring, that individual will get to the same place as the soulmates, will have the same degree of success as the soulmates. Two different routes. One is through feeling. The other is through mind. Both take you to the same transformative place. Both ultimately transform the energy which is held at the base of the spine in the material world, transform that energy into that Kundalini experience where that energy lifts the psyche, lifts the level of consciousness to a far higher level, lifts that to a far higher level. Okay? So what we're going to be seeing here is that you can do that through a connection to your soulmates. You can do that through your own searching and development. Both go to the same place. Both have the same incredibly alchemical, transformative experience on you. So, as you're looking through that path journal, okay, a lot of you probably came up with some comments and questions. So I'm going to ask Lisa if there's anybody who's written in a comment or a question into the chat room that is pertinent to the 30th path that I can answer for you right now.
Well, we do have one question. It says, Tammy may have already mentioned this and I missed it, but I was curious about how she arrived at this particular format for pathworking. She said that she doesn't come at it from any religious angle, so I'm curious how she would describe the intention behind her particular method. How does she derive these particular mandalas and meditations? Also, if it all is already here at the Big Bang, how is free will tied into that? Does free will actually exist?
Okay, I'm going to start with the last question and work back because we've actually got 3 or 4 questions all worked in. The answer is, of course, free will exists. Here's the thing. The things that were created at the time of the Big Bang are the possibilities. All of the energy for what is out there is already here. Now, let me try to give you an example here. Supposing when the Big Bang was created, there was the concept of electricity created at the same time. Certainly, when we were at the level of evolution of people who lived in the Stone Age, nobody could use electricity. We weren't at that level yet. But as we evolved and our minds reached the ability where we could embrace a concept of electricity. We had good old Benjamin Franklin standing on a hill with a kite being hit by a bolt of lightning saying, wow, that's electricity. What could happen if I could harness that? And a few years later, the first light bulb was born. Now, what's interesting is that electricity existed from the dawn of time. There were always electrical bolts of lightning. But until mankind, or at least one of us, reached the evolutionary level, the mental development level, where that question could be asked, how can I convert that bolt of lightning into something which could maybe give light in my home? That had to happen at that point. So his free will be on that hill. His free will run the kite. His free will ask the question. His free will create the light bulb. And you may not be aware that the first light bulb that Benjamin Franklin created, all the way back in the very early, I believe, or late 1800s or early 1900s, that light bulb is still burning down in Fort Myers, Florida. Okay? It's never gone out. It was a permanent light bulb. So why, then, did we, for years and years and years and years, have light bulbs that burned out and needed to be replaced at least every 18 months? Because other minds said, wow, free enterprise, marketing, making more money. We don't want that light bulb that will never burn out. We want light bulbs that we can keep supplying. Now, that concept was also in existence from the beginning of time. But those people who had the marketing mindsets to understand that concept had to get to the point where not only was that invention created, but they could decide what they wanted to do with it. So free will has a whole lot to do with the direction that things go. I.e., if those marketers had jumped on the original light bulb and said, wow, permanent forever light in every household in the world, we would all of us be using Thomas Edison's original light bulb. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, that's right. It wasn't Benjamin Franklin who did that. It was Thomas Edison. Thank you, guys. That's my guys kicking in. So it was the combination of effects. Thomas Edison created the light bulb. Benjamin Franklin discovered the electricity. The thing is that here two minds came together, which created this wonderful potential to have light in every household, but the people existing in the time who were running businesses chose free will to take it in a new direction and to develop a light bulb that would have a shelf life. And in today's world, we're beginning to see a reverse of that, aren't we? As we develop lights that are run by solar power, etc., etc. So it's really interesting that all of these things can be created and they're out there, but we, number one, have to reach the evolutionary level where we can embrace and understand the concept before we can develop it. That's number one. And number two, we have to choose which direction we want to develop it. Here's another example. I was 14 years old and having dreams every night about sitting in a chair that looked like a dentist chair and somebody shining a light in my eye, and when they were done, I had perfect vision. Now, when I was 14 years old, the only laser on the planet was as big as a city block, and it had just been created. So a laser surgery that could work on eyes was 30 years in advance. But when I was 14, I was already seeing that because our evolutionary level was coming to the point where we could understand and create lasers. And I was able to get that information and say, wow, lasers hitting the eyes, and you can see, wow. To me, it was a dream. I never did anything with it. It was, wow, that was really cool. I wrote it down in my dream book. Someone else at that same time in mankind's development received probably that same dream, that same inspiration, and said, wow, shrink that laser down and think what I could do with it. 30 years later, out came laser surgery for eyes. Okay? So different people will do different things. There's your free will. You always have free will. Free will is connected to us. We can see it very clearly within the lower personality, how many times I ask myself, does that higher self scratch its head and say, oh no, here we go again, when the lower self is doing something stupid and making a bad decision that's going to lead through many, 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 many more hardships before they can get back on track. The thing is that at every level of development, at every level of our evolution, we still have free will. And there's always a higher part of us that can see the whole and can see where our future's going, and yet cannot influence our free will. Isn't that interesting? If you want to think of it in terms of God, God gives us that free will because it's the free will that says whether or not we want to take the path up the mountain with our soulmate, or whether we want to take the path up the mountain that leads through being that investigative, wonderfully curious child that has to explore the entire universe. That's our free will, whichever you choose. So, yes, we always have free will. And Lisa, what was the next part of that question? So go ahead back to the beginning. I'll answer that part next.
She said she's curious about how you arrived at this particular format for pathworking, because you said that it doesn't come from any religious angle. So she's curious how you would describe the intention behind the particular method and how you derive these particular mandalas and meditations.
Yeah, and a lot of that I did answer in earlier classes, but it's never too many times to go back over something. I did not develop these mandalas. The mandalas were created by a wonderful artist who took the classes in the early 90s. Her name is Joyce Reed, and she would take the path, and immediately upon coming out of the path, when you folks are writing down your experiences, she was drawing the mandala. Okay? So when you look at the mandalas, you're going to find all kinds of items that are from the path that remained with her. And I commissioned her to do these because she did such a wonderful job with the first one that she showed me. Sandy, what do you think of this? So she did the mandalas. What is the intention of the path working? Raising consciousness. Again, I think I had mentioned this in the first class. I said to my guides, there has to be one system that embodies everything else, and they led me to the Kabbalah. And then I said to my guides, when I was teaching psychic development, there has to be a shortcut. We're working towards higher consciousness. We're working towards helping people to wake up, to become more aware and conscious. And yes, psychic development, that does this. But it takes so much effort and so much application. There's got to be a shortcut. And they said, Kabbalah pathworking. And this class was born. And yes, they helped me along with the original group of students. The very first time this class came into existence, and I've mentioned them, they're in the front of my book, I had a group of students who with me worked to look at every book we could get our hands on. So these paths originated from, yes, Sandy's studies on the astral, but they also originated from deep research by Sandy and by 8 other people. Okay? So these paths are intuitive, but they're also very well researched. And they do go into archetypes, psychological archetypes that stimulate your subconscious mind. Okay? So and why do I know they work? Results. Okay? And I think that answers all those questions, yes?
Well, she's put in a couple of add-on questions here. What's the origin of this information that allows or helps us to evolve? Aliens, God, other? Like who is sending the dreams and the inspiration?
I'm not sure what you're meaning on that. Who is sending the dreams and the inspiration to you when you have done the paths and you're now having these experiences at home? Did we get an answer there, Lisa?
She was writing. Yes, us, or like when she dreamed of the laser, or when you dreamed of the laser.
Oh, that's simple. I can answer that because that was my dream. I can't always answer what your dreams, where they came from, because that's yours. That dream came from Sandy's higher self. Apparently, my consciousness, I'm human like all of you, and my consciousness, like all of you, had reached the point in its evolution where it was able to receive information on that level. And it came through as a experience for me in a dream, like, wow, this is a fun thing. It was like going and getting my nails done, only I was getting my eyes done. Okay? And that came from my higher self. Because, you see, in my case, it actually gave me that precognitively. It was exactly 38 years later that I had that done by the same exact man that I saw in my dreams, who happened to be born that same year. So that was precognitive, and it came directly from my higher self, where honestly is where precognition is going to come as a psychic. It's going to come through that higher part of you, what I call your higher self, that originates on the tree of life at Tifrith. So this path working for all of us is going to help us to activate those higher parts of ourself. How do I know which Sephiro connect with which chakras? That information was deeply researched. How do I know which Sephiro equate to the supernal triad or the physical plane? That information I received both in classes on the astral, which I told you about, and also through deep research. And I think, if we go further into this, we're just going to be getting more and more picayune, but I think that really covered the questions, and they were great questions. Thank you. I find that when one person's thinking of a question, that question's in everybody else's mind too, which is why it's great to be able to have these options. Now, I want to talk about a couple of things that I saw on Facebook that you folks were also commenting about and questioning. One of the things that came up was a gentleman who had a very realistic dream of being a Roman soldier. And that took him back to childhood experiences where he play acted being a Roman soldier. Well, that's going to lead us into the next path, the 29th path, where we're activating our access to reincarnation. And you mentioned, the last person who asked that question also mentioned that, what about dreams? Well, in the path, in the Facebook group, there was a very long dream, so I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but I want to go a little bit into it because it's such a good thing for all of us to understand. When you post a dream on Facebook, the rest of the people who are on the Facebook group can comment on that dream and help you to get more out of it. And I definitely encourage you to do that. But this one gal, in going through the dream, actually came to her own understanding, which I thought was really very cool. Her dream was very, very long. It took place in an astral house, which was kind of interesting because on Path 30, what were we in but an astral mansion? And she was climbing those spiral stairs. Now, I don't know if she ever took my psychic development classes, but in my psychic development classes, I do have a meditation I use frequently about climbing a spiral stairway, because all energy moves in spirals, so that speaks to your subconscious. And you climb that spiral staircase as you're moving up towards the higher self. Well, in this gal's dream, she's climbing that spiral staircase, and she gets all the way up into the attic. And also in dream interpretations that I teach in psychic development, and also in my dream interpretation class, I talk about different aspects of houses being addressed to different aspects of your life. The attic would be the higher self. The main floor would be the physical plane, material plane that you're living on. And the basement, for example, your subconscious mind. So in going up to the attic, I don't know if she was aware of this, but she's getting a dream, this is telling her, from the higher self. And she goes up to her bedroom, which is up there in the attic. And so she's getting dreams from her higher self. There's the answer right there. This dream is from the higher self. On the way up, she's struck by the disrepair of the staircase, and things look like they're falling apart. She gets upstairs and she tells her husband who's there that the poor repair really, really bothers her. So what is she really talking about? The poor repair is her connection to her higher self hasn't been paid attention to. And he says that's no big deal. And he's being very loving with her, and he's caressing her face, and that loving feeling, again, the 30th path talks about the soulmates, doesn't it? And here's the 30th path in her dream. I just love this dream. And so the dream goes on, and he eventually goes down the spiral stairs. That's going back towards the physical plane. She just jumps. And she realized, oh my God, I didn't know it was so far down. That was important. The recognition of how high up that development is and how far down it is to become just physical, just material. So that was a way of measuring. In fact, just before measuring, he was showing her his thumb, and he had little dots on the thumb. And she didn't say how many dots there were, but if you can remember back and count those dots, that was the level up that dream was coming from. I just thought that was so cool. The dream takes off from a new spot. That's not uncommon with dreams. The same dream can pick up from a different point of view. But now it's more on the physical plane. Why? Because she's on a barren field, so she's outdoors, and she's in a field that has hills and valleys and lots of holes and pits in it. There's the physical plane. And she's concerned that her children are such a distance away. They're her adult children, such a distance away. And she can't quite ever get close to them again the way she wants to be. And she sees her son happy, and she recognizes that's wonderful. She's accepting, but she still has trouble that she can't get to him. And she tells her husband how she's just not happy about that distance. And he says, just let it be. There's nothing you can do about it now. And here's her realization. She realized as she woke up from this dream that the old way she had of carrying on her relationships is crumbling. And she's moving into a new phase of life. She can't go back. And I'm really loving the ability to share that with you. She shared it on Facebook. I'm sharing it with you here. Because this dream is a dream from that higher self, from a very high level indeed. And she did get her answers. And she is able to understand far more and apply it because of getting this information in the dreams. So this relates right back to the previous question that, yeah, as we go through the path working and we're stimulating these things that are energetically opening us and allowing us, if we allow it, to raise our consciousness. And we're going to get more and more information to enrich our own lives. Okay? And remember, there's always free will. If you don't want to go there, you say no. If a certain path doesn't work for you, you say, I'm not going to listen to that one again. I didn't like that. Didn't feel good. You have free will. Isn't that wonderful? Okay, Lisa, are there any more questions in the chat room?
Nope.
Okay, let's move down a little bit then, and we're going to look at the 29th path. This is the path that we have just begun. We've been on it for about 3-4 days right now, and it begins in Malkuth. So we're nice and grounded on the 29th path. It ends in Netzach. And Netzach is a very unique Sephiro in that it talks about what we think of as your lower intuition or your gut feelings. It's very closely related to instinctual responses. All animals have their, at least wild animals, have their higher self rooted in this Sephiro. If you want to read a great book, it's called The Kabbalion, not to be confused with the Kabbalah. It's spelled K-Y-B-A-L-I, I think it's O-N. And it's written by 3 initiates. No names, just 3 initiates. And it defines that this Sephiro this location, this intuitive level of the astral, is where wild animals will actually have their higher self, and it is very much a group mind. It's that group mind, instinctive energy, that gives rise to this part of the upper astral. It's pure intuition. So we're traveling on the 29th path from sphere 10, Malkuth, up to sphere 7, Netzach. We're going between the earthy, material energy of Malkuth to the fiery, intuitive, instinctual energy of Netzach. And we're on, for the first time, folks, the feminine. This side of the tree on the lower level is the feminine side of the tree. So we're in the lower, we're going through the lower astral to the upper, and we are grounded on one end in the instinctive sphere of Netzach on the other end, and the energies combining are earth from Malkuth and fire from Netzach. So let's just take a look at some of the things, since we've been on this path for a little while. You've been keeping your journal. Let's look at some of the things that the 29th path is helping us to work on. First of all, and I talked about this before, a lot of you, not just that one fellow who put the past life as a Roman soldier on our Facebook, many of you have had experiences in your dreams or even conscious feelings of deja vu, like I've been here before, because the 29th path gives you an understanding of reincarnation, and that life doesn't end, but only changes form. Interestingly, and I want to just share this with you for a moment, earlier today, out of a clear blue sky, I had a conversation with a woman simply about this: life doesn't end, it only changes form. And this is a gal who's in the process of writing a book, and the reason she's writing the book is because she's a very devout Christian, has followed Christianity all of her life. She's lost both of her parents, and both of her parents came to her, communicated with her after their death. And she was lucky enough, she considers herself very lucky, that when her mother passed, her regular priest was not available. So they sent a substitute priest to do last rites, who was clairvoyant. And she wasn't able to be with her mother at the moment she passed. And she was so worried about her mother being alone when she passed. And so when she talked to this priest, she told him that. I was so worried that she would be alone. And the priest said, I have the ability to see that last thing that was on in front of the person's eyes when they passed. And this is the person she was with. And he proceeded to describe her father, who had already passed. And so, of course, she felt so much better that her mother didn't die alone, but then she also confided in the priest that her dad was already passed. And the priest said, that's not surprising, because we only change form. The soul goes on. Your father was there for your mother. So, she and I had the discussion that she is writing this book because she needs to share that story with other people who may not understand that we change form, we don't end. We can reincarnate, we can come back, we can recycle. We can move to the other side in a changed form, in a different dimension, if you will. But we don't die. Not the way most people think of death. As Esther Hicks, who channels the group of spirits called Abraham, says, we're alive here, and then we're alive there. So you're going to come to understand through all of the paths that lead in and out of Netzach, Sphere 7, you're going to come to understand more and more thoroughly the whole concept of cycles, of reincarnation, of everything in the universe being intertwined. You also got from the 29th path the ability to revisit past lives and to find your roots. The ability to revisit past lives and to find your roots. Now again, I want to take you back for a minute to the last slide. A lot of this comes out of Malkuth. If you remember all the way back to path 32, towards the end of the path, we looked down into the well and we saw the opening of the door into past lives. We saw our roots. It's in Malkuth that we find so many of our roots. So the reason that path 29 gives us the ability to revisit past lives and to find our roots. And here you could be talking about something as simple as genealogy or as really intuitive as becoming a Roman or finding out that you were a Roman soldier in many other lifetimes, or at least one. Finding your roots, it can be an emotionally based thing, it can be an intuitively based thing, it can be literally going back into past lives through hypnosis with a hypnotherapist. All of these methods are 29th path experiences. It also gives us the ability to perceive cycles. Now, some of you who, going back to the last path, 30th path, which is great for studying astrology, might be learning about cycles by studying the cycles of the planets. Because yes, those cycles do repeat and patterns do repeat. So astrology teaches those patterns as well. But others are going to see the patterns in our family groups. Others are going to see the cycles in the world around them, whether it has to do with the seasonal cycles or the cycles of your own life in terms of, growing up and getting married, and that these are certain cycles that you have. So you're just beginning to recognize that in our world we have cycles within cycles within cycles. And eventually you're going to understand that when you can appreciate the cycles, you can also predict them, and you can also interact with them to change them or to raise them to a higher level. But first, you've got to be able to perceive them. The 29th path also gives you the ability to understand unity and the whole concept of the group mind. Netzach, folks, is all about the group mind. It's instinctive. You gain a feeling of belonging on this path, on path 29, and a feeling of being home. Now, for some of you, that felt very uncomfortable. For others, it felt like, oh my, I can relax for the first time in ages. This is the way you're supposed to feel. This is what's being stirred up within you. And whatever you feel is okay. There's not a right and a wrong in any of these paths, folks. They're geared to give rise to certain things that you get to look at and understand and feel your way through. They allow self-recognition. The 29th path allows self-recognition, and it gives you a feeling that you're wanted and you're loved, get this, by the Universal Mother. So even those of you who may have had difficult relationships with your natural mother, or some of you were adopted and never knew your mother, when you do the 29th path and internalize it, you get one better. You get the Universal Mother. This can be incredibly healing, which is one of the reasons why the 29th path is so good for healing family disputes and for healing you as well. It helps you to spread harmony among all of the people you interact with. It's kind of like you begin to move into a situation that involves a group, and you don't need to use your mind to understand what's going on. You feel what's going on, and you immediately feel which people you need to connect with, or which people you may need to introduce to each other, which people you need to distance from, and through that feeling, you bring harmony to the entire situation. Think about in your week so far. What situations have you been able to do that in? The 29th path also enhances your visualizing ability. Now, for some of you, that actually could mean that your physical eyes are starting to work better. Okay? I had a student many years ago who was completely deaf in one ear and about 98% deaf in the other ear. And during the course of the path working, she became able to hear people, even people whose backs were turned to her, whose lips she couldn't read. Hearing aids didn't work on her, and yet she could hear what they were saying from across the store that she worked in. So, is there a psychic component to all of your senses? Your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your ability to feel, your ears? Absolutely. And the path-working experience can augment them. So if some of you feel like your visualization ability is getting better, that's great. If some of you feel as if your eyes are getting better, that's great too. Some of you may be being led to certain types of vitamins or supplements that will also help your physical eyes and your mental acuity, etc., etc. And all that can be an outflow of your path working. It helps to further stimulate your third eye. So the more you do these paths, the more you're going to find that third eye being more and more stimulated. Especially paths that are moving into the upper astral level. We aid clairvoyance and crystal gazing ability with this path. And I want to add something to this. Even though this is an aid to crystal gazing ability, please just don't jump in and get yourself a crystal ball and start working with it. If you're going to work with these things, you do need to learn protection and the right way of doing them so that you're safe. So get a good book on crystal gazing, or get my MP3 download on crystal gazing. The 29th path also increases your receptivity. So it helps you to be receptive in an energetic sense. Remember, it's elevating the feminine principle within you, which is softness, it's gentleness, it's being more receptive. That could be more receptive to your mate. It could be more receptive to other people's ideas. It could be receptive to your own higher self. Certainly receptive to all the things that the universe is delivering to you right now. It helps you to increase your ability to drop your resistance and go with the flow. I love a story that Esther Hicks, who channels Abraham Hicks, I love a story she talks about. She says that we humans, for whatever reason, always feel that we want to row our boat upstream. We always feel like we want to go against the current. For whatever reason, we just all seem to do it. She says, Abraham says through her, nothing you want is ever upstream. He says, all you need to do is take your oars out of the water and go with the flow of the river, and everything you want will be there for you. So this is one of the things that the 29th path teaches us. Everything you want is yours when you learn to go with the flow. It helps you to purge pain. The 29th path helps you to get in touch with those things that you've been harboring or holding on to. And because it's teaching release and letting go of resistance, it's teaching you to purge the pain as well. It gives you increased creativity. So like my friend who wants to write the book, how wonderful it is to know that you don't die, is on this path with us, even though she's not taking Kabbalah. She's on this path. Her creativity is increasing. You're going to find as you move forward with the paths and as you become more focused in your own developing self, that you create those ripples. Think of them as energetic forces that are going out from you in all directions. And the people who are drawn into your arena of activity will be reflecting everything that you're working on. So you're increasing your creativity, and the people you meet are being more creative too. So you're confronting your fears. You're knowing that your fears are nothing more than a reflection of yourself, and that they're created by you. That's important, folks. You're confronting your fears, and you're knowing that those fears are nothing more than a reflection of yourself, and you created them. The next thing you should understand after that is that if you keep adding more fear into a fear, you're going to build it into a phobia, and you created that too. So give some thought. We'll talk more about this next week. Give some thought as to how you can draw the energy out of your fear so that they no longer are reflected in your world and in your life. It helps you to be in touch with your own body and its needs. How many of us in our world right now are so on the go, and we're taking care of so many people, we're doing so many things that we don't have time to be in touch with our own body and our own body's needs. Well, the 29th path helps you to get back in touch with that. So when you are out of touch with you and with your needs, this path is a great path to redo, to re-listen to. It helps you to know that you're responsible for creating and maintaining your own body. You're the one who's responsible for that. Pay attention to it. Give it what it needs. Find out what it needs. Pay attention. And it is the path for self-healing. I want to draw your attention to that part of the path where you've rolled down the hill and you came to rest in the bowl of a tree trunk. And inside of that bowl, you go into a deep meditation of self-healing. And you actually, from the inside out, alter your cellular structure and your DNA. You heal yourself. You come out of that tree bowl, that tree trunk, a new person. Again, this is taking that alchemical experience from the Path 30, where we transformed and healed and brought energy up, and it's taking it a step further into making it transformative to where you are literally creating the healthy body, the healthy mind, the healthy emotional you that you need to go through life with. Path 29 increases contact with your guides. It also enhances sexual enjoyment. It increases personal and group prosperity. That's a good one, huh? And it aids in work that involves all kinds of animals. And I have to laugh when I read that, because as we are doing this path tonight, both of my little female Pekingese have come into season, and my person that I have arranged to mate them with brought her male dog today. So guess what? I'm living this path, aiding in and working, involving animals. I love this synchronicity of how the paths connect into your life over and over and over again. They reflect in you, you reflect back in them. Using free will, choose how you want that reflection to manifest in your life. Love that question about free will. And this is a good time for me to ask Lisa again, what more questions have appeared in the chat room?
Okay, we have 2 more so far. The first one is, why can I seem to read my external and other people, but not my own self?
That's interesting. And when you have that issue, I would go back and redo the 30th path. Because remember, the 30th path gives you that emotional distance. It promotes the scientific mind, which has that ability to separate from the emotions and gives you a better ability to connect with things concerning self in a arm's length kind of a way. When we do the 29th path, not only are we so immersed in the emotions of life, but we're so merged with other people and with the whole world around us that it can actually become difficult to separate ourselves from the other people traveling the same path with us. Remember that part of the path where we're all in the river and we all have no clothes on, we're all just moving together as one single, wonderful, happy, interconnected group? How can we tell one from the other? How can we really give either ourselves a reading or somebody else a reading when we see ourselves that connected to them? Okay, so this 29th path is not the path that I would use for psychic readings. It is the path I would use to get in touch with all of these other things we talked about that it helps you to work on. So it will help you to be more intuitive. It can help you to see more things in the crystal gazing. It's not going to help you to be able to do psychic readings with other people. Did that answer that question? I hope. Any of the paths that move in, out, and around Hod are going to give you the intellectual and emotional objectivity to be able to give healthy readings to other people and also give objective readings to yourself. I also want to show you, and let's just go back up and look at the path again, the tree of life actually. All of the lower paths on the tree, these mean all of the Sephiroth paths up to Tiferet, which is sphere 6, are considered the bottom paths, the lower paths on the tree, and they are connected with the emotions, the mind, the intuition, and the physical body. The paths starting in Tiferet and above bring us to the higher chakras, the higher levels. Tiferet connects to the heart center, Gevurah and Kesed to the throat, Bina and Hokmah to the third eye, Kether to the crown. These are your higher centers connecting with the upper part of the tree. When we get to the paths that are on the upper part of the tree, you will be able to be much more objective to self, and readings on self will become more successful. Okay, that was a good question. And who else has got a question, Lisa?
Okay, what path is best for increasing psychic reading ability?
Oh, each one of the paths has something to offer. Okay? I think that those of you who want to do astrology or numerology or learn the tarot cards in a learn their meanings kind of a way, anything that has a technical aspect, i.e. a tool, you're going to be doing better working with Path 30 out of the paths that we've worked so far. Those of you who want to develop your gut feeling, want to get more in touch with your own inner voice, the intuitive part of you that says, yes, take this path, no, take this other path. Those of you who are ready to let go of mind and let the total gut instinct guide you, those will do better on path 29. Okay, each path has its own psychic ability that it helps to develop. All of the paths connect to different psychic abilities. So it really has to do with which thing you want to develop. Path 32 and Path 29 are both fabulous for past life recall, past life readings. Connecting to the Akasha, Path 30. Being able to astral travel, Path 31 and Path 30. So you begin to see that there's not one path that says, okay, this opens all of your psychic abilities. And they are also cumulative. When we get to the top of the tree, we'll be doing Path 14 and Path 12, and you're going to be having these amazing experiences on the other planes that you couldn't possibly be having if you hadn't built the foundation, which you're building right now. All the things we're doing right now in our path working are foundational, and they're helping you to really get in touch with things deep inside of you that need to be readjusted in order for you to build upon them. That's about as well as I can answer that question right now. And are there any other questions, Lise?
Nope, not right now.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to point out, again, still in the area of questions, having looked over at the Facebook group, somebody here was talking about having experiences of physical pain on the 29th path. And I want to point out that the 29th path has one of the things it does is helps you to purge pain. So here was a student who actually got pain on that 29th path. And I wanted to discuss that for a minute because there's every possibility that what actually happened was that was an area where you had pain that you blocked and pushed down and never dealt with and never released. And on the path, the resistance goes away, the pain comes back, so that you can again purge it and release it for real. Okay? There's also the possibility of things that would cause pain coming into your body in order to attract your attention to something that you need to put some effort into to repair. This is about repairing self. A large part of the 29th path is about rebuilding self and repairing yourself. Somebody else had said that they couldn't remember their dreams on Path 29 and thought that was so odd because this is somebody who normally remembers their dreams all the time. And I wanted to address that too. Folks, some of you are going to find that you have a radical difference depending on whether you're working on the right side of the tree or the left side of the tree. I've had students who, on the entire journey along the masculine generative paths, couldn't remember a thing. Right from the bottom of the tree to the top of the tree. And then they'd go to the other side of the tree, to the feminine side, and bam, they could remember everything. So this is unique, this is individual. You might find one particular path that maybe it's important and your subconscious has to kind of say, no, we're not letting you have recall because you need to internalize and work on this. You're not ready for that full recall. So you might fall asleep both on the path, you might find yourself not remembering dreams. And then you go to the next path and all of a sudden you remember the whole path, you were there through the whole thing, and your dreams are crystal clear all week. This is why it's so important for you folks to keep a diary. Because what you do remember and what you don't remember can both be important. when you have dreams and when you don't have dreams. That can be important too. All of this is giving you insight into which paths are most important to you right now and how those paths are affecting you. And believe it or not, folks, I find in generally speaking, the ones that I can't remember, the ones I fall asleep on, the ones that I don't remember my dreams that week, those are actually the ones where there's more work happening inside of me. There's more going on. And so I will go back and I'll reread those paths, or if I have time, I'll re-listen to that path to keep putting it into my subconscious, because whatever it's working on, I know is something that is helping me to work through things, to do more releasing. And I like this last one, that feeling of calming and all is well that somebody had on Path 29. Because I find a lot of people on Path 29 have that same feeling. And I think that feeling, my belief is that that feeling comes from being able to participate in the group mind, feeling a part of a universal family. And by the time we're at the end of the path, as emotional and intense as the 29th path is, at the end of that path, we feel a part of something so important and so much bigger and so much warmer than ourselves. It's kind of like snuggling up to a warm fire. And it generates that feeling of calm and peace. And no matter what else is going on, everything's happening as it should be. Any other questions surfaced while I was talking, Lise?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about where we're going next week. Okay? First off, you're going to keep, let's go all the way back up to our slide that has our definitions on it. We're going to Path 28. You're going to take the moon card on Sunday. That's the end of our week. You're going to take the moon card out from under your pillow, and you're going to put the star card under the pillow. You're going to take your pearl, or whatever white stone you were using, out from under the pillow, and under the pillow goes a piece of glass. And it can be any kind of glass. Just don't use something with sharp edges. And we're going to shift our color from that crimson red to violet. Those of you who, like me, love violet, you're going to really love that. Okay? So those are going to be the things that we shift in terms of the actual path. And we're going to begin the 28th path in Yesod. So once again, we're on the female side of the tree. Once again, we are beginning our path, one we're going to take this Sunday. We're beginning our path in the ungrounded Sephiroth of Yesod. You folks should be beginning to start feeling at home in Yesod. As ungrounded as it is, you're starting to feel more comfortable there. So we're going to begin our path in ungrounded, lower astral plane, Yesod. We're going to travel the 28th path to Netzach, opening up our second doorway into this Sephiroth that is ruled by the female planet Venus. Now Yesod is ruled by the moon. So we're traveling between two female Sephiroth. Now remember when we did the mirror path of, that would be path 30, we traveled between the moon Sephiroth of Yesod and the Mercury Sephiroth of Had. Mercury is hermaphroditic. It's neither male nor female, or actually both. So we are mirroring. We had here a feminine to a multi-sexual Sephiroth. Here we have feminine to feminine. This path is totally feminine. Again, last week's path, the 30th, the 29th, the one we're on right now, Malkuth is feminine, Earth is feminine, Netzach is feminine. So we're on this cycle of feminine energy paths. There's a lot of softness here. There's a lot of internalization. There's a lot of creativity. There's not a lot of groundedness. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it. So remember, stay on the 29th path, where we are right now, for the next couple of days. And then we switch out. In our case, it's Sunday, to the 28th path. And please keep your journal. And that's it for our new information for this week.